Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. Let's get Rog on the call here. Start the show. It's Thursday and I have had no sleep. Oh, right. I have to log on Facebook because I haven't logged on Facebook on this. Alright, good morning. I've had a terrible Wednesday. I haven't gone to sleep. I had to reinstall my entire computer. I don't have all... I can record though. That's the only thing I worked on, is being able to record. Everything else is basically bare bones OS.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's a lot of stories.
What is it, Thursday?
Yes, it's Thursday. Yeah, that's gonna be my culture story.
You looking for stories now?
Of course, I didn't have time to even install my programs. I basically woke up, reinstalled the Windows, and then tried to get my recording software working just for this. So yeah, I didn't have time to open my browser and look at stories. But I have them now. So if you're ready.
Okay, browser. Alright, I guess I'm ready, yeah. Let me see if I can... Getting these reading pain thing to the side.
Okay. Today on Before Coffee, all pregnant women are in danger. Protests in Poland after expectant mother dies in hospital.
Tornadoes rip through the American Southeast, or as they know it, as they call it in America, Wednesday.
At least 78 people drown as refugee boat sinks off Greece.
Long-awaited Vietnam energy plan aims to boost renewables, but fossil fuels are still in the mix.
Update on the key EU biodiversity law, and makes it to the next stage despite rebellions from MEPs.
And Bill Gates visits China as leaders try to revive foreign business interest. Today, on Thursday, June 15th, 2023, comprehensive news of planet Earth on Before Coffee. Set up better.
Well, we'll see.
Might lose my shit at any minute. Well,
okay.
Somebody please call me with more bad news, okay? Anyway.
Let's talk about Poland. Stop killing us. Protesters across Poland chanted this evening, demanding the legislation of abortion after reports reached the media of a pregnant woman's death in hospital in May. On Monday, Poland's patients' rights ombudsman Bartłomiej Chmielewicz said that the John Paul II hospital should have told 33-year-old Dorota Lalik that her life could be saved through an abortion. The hospital violated her rights by withholding that information, the ombudsman ruled. The woman died in the hospital in Nowy Targ in the south of the country on 24th of May, 3 days after admission. No one told us that we had practically no chance for a healthy baby. That the entire time they were giving us false hope that everything will be okay. That, in the worst case, the child would be premature, Lilik's husband told Polish media. No one gave us the choice or the chance to save Dorota, because no one told us her life was at risk. In 2021, a 30-year-old identified as Isabella died in the southern town of Beijing in the similar circumstances after being denied an abortion, sparking protest and drawing attention to the way of a 2020 ruling affects pregnancies with complications. Abortion continues to be legal in Poland if the pregnancy poses a risk to health or life to the pregnant person, or is a result of a crime such as rape or incest. However, in 2020, Poland's constitutional tribunal judged as unconstitutional abortion due to fetal abnormalities. This ruling has had a freezing effect in Polish doctors, according to Jolanta Budzwałska, the lawyer representing the families of Lalik and Isabella. If the doctors carry out an abortion too early and the prosecutors then decide there was no danger to the mother, they can face up to 3 years in prison. How about, you know what? Okay, sure, you want to ethically stop people from doing abortion. Okay, that's what you want to do. Why don't we just, not punish the doctors for doing it? Punish the people who did it? Because they made the choice? We just don't want doctors because they can get arrested for doing their job. Just stop arresting doctors for these things. I mean, don't arrest anybody in general. Let me make that clear for abortions. Who cares? Right? It's your body. You can do whatever you want with it. But let's stop arresting the doctors for things. Marta Lampert, founder of the All Poland Women's Strike, which organized many of the protests, said all pregnant women are endangered the moment they're referred to a Polish hospital. We are afraid of all doctors because we don't know which ones will act to prevent their patient's death. This is another hospital death caused by the decision of doctors to deny access to legal abortion. We again saw the doctors lying, deceive the family, and wait passively as the patient died of sepsis. The anti-abortion legislation in Poland is very restrictive, but doctors are denying access to abortions that are legal. Their interpretation of the law is stricter than the government's. The Polish Ministry of Health has responded to Lejlik's death by asking a team of experts to issue more detailed standards for obstetricians. Lampart said, "It is difficult to say that this situation is just the fault of the government, when doctors are refusing to perform abortions permitted by the law in case when not only health is endangered but even life." In 2005, the then director of the hospital in which Lejlik died reportedly announced that the hospital would not perform any abortion as the procedure contradicted God's law and the Pope's teachings. No abortion has taken place at the hospital since at least 2018, the Polish media outlet Gazeta Wyborcza reported. The current director of the hospital, Mark Wierzba, is a local council of the right-wing Sovereign Poland Party, which has been described as the Catholic nationalist and supports a ban on abortion. The hospital has denied that either Wierzba's political allegiance or the papal patronage contributed to Lejlik's death. Since the protests in 2020, everybody in Poland knows the number to Abortion Without Borders, an organization that provides abortion pills. But not everyone realizes that if you're pregnant and you go to a Polish hospital, you might not leave alive, that you have to go prepared. You need to have a number to a lawyer and contact with the media ready, and you have to keep fighting and arguing and not believe a single word anyone says because you might not stay alive. This is why we are protesting. We want to raise alarm. If you are pregnant, this could happen to you if you're not prepared to fight for your life. This is an article from... who is it from? Weronika Strzezinska from The Guardian. Your story.
Well, I'm sure the Pope and all these religious right-wingers are all going to be pregnant anytime soon and have to make a decision.
Yep.
Because men should be shutting the fuck up about this completely. Toronto, some people call them Torontos because they can't pronounce things. Tornadoes ripped through the south. This is from ABC News. And let me make my story bigger so I don't have to keep scrolling constantly. All right. The Bullseye Wednesday is from Jackson, Mississippi to Columbus, Georgia. That was yesterday, by the way. 30 million Americans were on alert severe weather. Tornadoes slammed the south on Wednesday. A tornado affected Georgia and Alabama, where 2 tornadoes were reported. Severe thunderstorm watches were issued for most of Mississippi, central Mississippi. Wind gusts up to 90 miles per hour and a huge hail. And tornado watches from both Jackson, Mississippi to Montgomery, Alabama, Albany, Georgia. But the severe weather could stretch as far west as Dallas and as far east as Savannah, Georgia. On Thursday, the threat for hail and winds will be in 2 pockets, one in Kansas, Oklahoma, and another along the Gulf Coast from Alabama to Florida. The South is also facing dangerous heat. On Tuesday, McAllen, Texas hit a record high of 103 degrees. On Wednesday afternoon, the heat index, the temperature, what it feels like with the humidity, could soar to 104 degrees in San Antonio, 105 degrees in Houston, and the scorching 114 in Corpus Christi, Texas. Oh, sweet Jesus. Well, at least Corpus Christi's on the Gulf of Mexico. They can always just jump in the water. By Saturday, the heat index is forecast to climb to dangerous 108 degrees in Dallas, 111 degrees in San Antonio and Houston. So there's your weather forecast for the United States today, short and sweet, as we move the show along into real news stories. But we'll get the shortest one out of the way first.
I haven't gone to sleep, so yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
At least 70 people drowned. Big story coming out of Greece today. The victims, nearly all of them men from Afghanistan and Pakistan, drowned when the large trawler they were traveling in capsized of the southern Peloponnese. Why did my camera disconnect? Okay. It was unclear how many passengers were missing from the vessel, which had set out from eastern Libya and was heading for Italy. By nightfall, Greece's caretaker government had declared 3 days of national mourning to mark the tragedy. There has been a dramatic rise in the death count, which is climbing by the hour, said one Greek official. Speculation is rife that as many as 600 people were on board, but that has not been confirmed. The ship is under the water. It has sunk. About 104 passengers have been rescued as of Wednesday afternoon, he said. Ioannis Zafropoulos, the deputy mayor of the southern port city of Kalmata, where survivors were taken, said his information indicated there were more than 500 people on board. A European rescue support charity said it believed there were 750 people on board, and the UN's migration agency cited an estimate of as many as 400. Coast Guard vessels, a Navy frigate, military transport planes, an Air Force helicopter, and an array of private craft were participating in search for survivors. Rescue efforts were initially hampered by strong winds. Greek media outlets quoted survivors as saying the ship went down almost instantaneously, close to the deepest area of the Mediterranean Sea. The engine stopped and it sank in minutes, said one. On Wednesday evening, the first aerial pictures emerged of the overcrowded vessel before it capsized. The blue trawler appeared to have hundreds of people on board. Greek authorities and officials from the EU border agency Frontex were alerted to the stricken ship late on Tuesday. Repeated calls to the vessel offering help were declined, the Coast Guard said in a statement. In the afternoon, a merchant vessel approached the ship and freighted it with food and supplies, while the passengers refused any further assistance, the Coast Guard said. A second merchant ship later offered further supplies and assistance, which were turned down, the agency added. A Coast Guard patrol boat reached the vessel in the evening and confirmed the presence of a large number of migrants on deck, but they refused any assistance and they wanted to continue to Italy. Smugglers are taking ever greater risks to evade patrols. They are increasingly operating in international seaways with the aim of dropping off their human cargo in Italy rather than heavily guarded Greece. We see growing numbers plying open seas that they are more dangerous because they are prone to more stormy weather, said Natasha Stromchimi, a lawyer with the Refugee Support Agent, an NGO that provides legal aid to asylum seekers. And the journeys are taking much longer because the destination is Italy. The Greek Migration Ministry blamed international smuggling networks for putting lives of migrants and refugees at risk. But it's totally not their fault that they make it hard to enter the country. So they have to be smuggled. You know? Why do smugglers exist? Let's think about that for a second. There's a reason you have to be smuggled in somewhere.
They created a demand for it, so
exactly.
There you go.
Well, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, called on governments to work together to create safe pathways for people fleeing poverty and war. Like I said, people from Afghanistan have a real reason to be leaving the country. It's not just because they're bored and let's go traveling. They have a real risk to their livelihoods if they stay in their country. They have to go somewhere else to survive.
As do people from Guatemala, or wherever, right? I'm just saying, it's not just. We're this sophisticated people, but we always treat other people like they should have. Well, you should have done better in your country to where you came from.
Yeah, you should have tried harder to not, whatever.
Like we got room to talk.
Greece has been criticized for forcibly expelling would-be asylum seekers in violation of international law. Its former center-right government, which is facing re-election in polls later this month, has denied the pushbacks, calling it a migration policy tough but fair, as we talked about, I think, last week. A video released last month showed refugees had reached the island of Lesbos being forcibly placed on a Greek Coast Guard vessel before being set adrift and picked up by Turkish Coast Guard. Yes, we definitely talked about that. Kyriakos Mitsotakis, the country's prime minister until May, and the main left-wing opposition leader, Alex Tispiras, announced they would suspend their electoral campaigns as the scale of the tragedy became apparent. The European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, said she was deeply saddened by the tragedy. Last week, EU interior ministers agreed radical reforms on migration law and a new pact with Tunisia to reduce the migration, with specific funds intended to stem the loss of life in the Mediterranean. We also talked about that on a different episode. UN data suggests that about 72,000 refugees and migrants have arrived in Italy, Spain, Greece, Malta, and Cyprus, countries bordering the Mediterranean. There's a plane flying over my house. So far this year, Greece has long been on the main routes for people fleeing war, persecution, and poverty in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. That's my story here from The Guardian with Helena Smith in Kalamata.
All right. Well, another tragedy of people drowning.
That people saw coming and nobody did to stop. They just, oh no.
As we continue to cover the globe, let's go to Southeast Asia. Along the way to Vietnam energy plan aims to boost renewables. This is from AP News. Jakarta, Indonesia. Power outages are leaving Vietnamese homes and businesses without power for hours at a time as prolonged drought and high temperatures, a common theme today, strain the fast-growing economy's capacity to keep up. A long-anticipated plan meant to fix the energy crunch and help achieve ambitious climate change goals will offer some relief, but may not go far enough in weaning the country off of fossil fuels, experts say. The need for progress is evident. Street lights have been turned off in some major cities, and business has been told to cut energy use. Amid severe drought, 2 of the 3 largest hydroelectric reservoirs in Vietnam have almost completely stopped operating. It is a big headache for us, said Nguyen Thanh Tam, Deputy Director of Ho Long Printing Company in Hanoi. We need power to operate the machines. The National Energy Plan, called the Power Development Plan 8, or PDP-8, aims to more than double the maximum power Vietnam can generate to some 150 gigawatts by 2030. That's more than the capacity of developed countries like France and Italy, though well below Japan's 290 gigawatts. It calls for drastic shift away from heavily polluting coal, expanding use of domestic gas and imported liquefied natural gas, or LNG, which will account for 25% of total generating capacity, while hydropower, wind, solar, and other renewable sources will account for nearly 50% by 2030. The plan showcases Vietnam's macroeconomic growth ambitions, with robust plans to expand its generation capacity and the associated power sector infrastructure required to cater to the country's growing energy demand, said Kanika Chawla, Chief of Staff of Sustainable Energy for All, the United Nations Sustainable Energy Unit. Used a lot of big words there. While Vietnam's new energy plan mandates no new coal-fired power plants will be built after 2030 as the country transitions to cleaner fuels, the total generating capacity for coal power will still rise by 2030, contributing some 20% of total energy production, down from the current 30.8%. By 2050, Vietnam will stop using coal for power generation, switching all coal plants to biomass and ammonia. According to the plan, the continued reliance on fossil fuels and burning biomass such as rice husk and residue from sugarcane farms, as well as the switch to new infrastructure for gas power plants, has experts worried. By 2022, Vietnam is trying a law to pledge to reach a net zero emissions by 2050. Late last year, the Group of 7 Advanced Economics promised to provide $15.5 billion to help it end its reliance on coal-fired power plants as part of Just Energy Transition Partnership, or JETP. Such projects had offered similar incentives to South Africa and Indonesia. Vietnam pledged to phase out coal power by 2040 at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in 2021. While coal remains a part of the energy mix, it is a market shift from the coal dependence that Vietnam sees today. A definitive phase down in share of energy mix and future emissions in line with the JETP, even as absolute quantities of thermal power are largely unchanged. Vietnam has also drawn criticism for cracking down on environmental campaigns. The German government has warned that the recent detention of prominent environmental campaigner Wang Thai Min Hong, the fifth activist to be arrested in the past 2 years, could endanger a recent multi-billion-dollar deal to help the country phase out its coal use. The gradual shift away from coal won't wean Vietnam from fossil fuels, given its goal of expanding use of LNG, which is cooled natural gas that is made predominantly of methane, whose production and transportation leaks contribute to global warming. The demand for LNG, itself viewed as largely a legacy industry to be phased out, has soared with disruptions in natural gas supplies from Russia due to the war in Ukraine. That means higher prices and less secure supplies. If implemented, it would make it one of the largest gas users in the region, said Adia Lala, Asia program lead in the independent energy think tank Ember. Any disruption in gas supply, even as they emanate due to reasons outside Vietnam's control, may potentially push the country back to coal if alternate renewable energy capacity is not ramped up soon. Financing is another challenge, since the plan calls for spending nearly $135 billion on new power plants and electricity grids from now until 2030. Investors favor renewable energy sources, said Trang Nguyen, leader of the ClimateWorks Central Southeast Asia team. ClimateWorks Center's Southeast Asia team. It is good that the plan gives clarity to investors. However, a big risk is that LNG assets will become stranded, as it is happening now with coal. How to mobilize enough investments in something that may not be viable in the next decade or so is a challenge that I see. Vietnam, which has rapidly industrialized and made electricity available to nearly its entire population, has made huge strides in expansions of renewable energy. It fueled half of the country's electricity output in 2022, up from just a decade earlier. But upgrades to the power grid haven't kept up. What's needed is a revamp of the entire power system, with a plan to develop and integrate renewables in a power system holistically, Lala said, noting that the plan will likely result in short-term electricity rate hikes, even though it will stabilize prices in the power grid in the longer term. PDP8's emphasis on expansion and modernization of the grid also helps as it means fewer outages, enhanced grid stability, and overall improved energy reliability for households and businesses, he said. First and foremost, it means increased access to clean energy and reduction in emissions for the consumers. And that's our story about Vietnam trying to embrace the future of zero carbon. Your story.
Yeah, it's really tough for the developing world to catch up, because we had so much exploitation during the golden era of colonialization that we were just like, boom, and everyone else was like, where are you going? Wait for us. No, you can't follow us. Only we shall have all these things. All right.
They kicked our ass after they kicked France's ass. So let's give them some credit. Give them some credit. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Some updates on the EU biodiversity law from Lisa O'Carroll again here on The Guardian. The centre-right have lost. The EU flagship environmental law to restore biodiversity on land and rivers is hanging by a thread after a rebellion mounted by the centre-right group of MEPs failed to block the proposed legislation from going to the next stage in the parliamentary process. In a dead heat, 44 MEPs voted in favor and 44 against the nature restoration law that was proposed last year as a fundamental part of EU's Green Deal. It aims to reverse the dramatic decline in nature by making restoration and rewilding of degraded land and waters, including seas and seashores, mandatory. But the European People's Party (EEP) group pulled out the pulled out of the negotiations, arguing the law was flawed, did not provide strict definitions of degraded land, and would lead to the loss of food production. In a dramatic scene in Strasbourg, the group failed to win enough support to defeat the proposed law at the committee stage, with claims and counterclaims over coercion in the group's ranks. The tie-break led to more than 2 hours of further knife-edge voting on dozens of amendments. Had the EPP succeeded in defeating the proposal, they would have proceeded to a vote by the full parliament in July. On Wednesday, the UN Environmental Chief Inger Andersen urged MEPs to show leadership for future generations ahead of the vote and deliver on the promises the Union made at the COP15 6 months ago, which we talked about yesterday. He condemned those who had turned restoring biodiversity into a culture war issue. On Monday, chief executives from 50 companies, including IKEA and Nestle and H&M, published an open letter voicing their support for the law, warning protecting nature was key to a well-functioning economy. That's right. So that's our small little update here about how they did it. They were Oh no, wait. They didn't do it. No, they did. Wait. Yeah, they didn't do it. Sorry, I was reading the sentence again. Specifically, the center-right failed to defeat the proposal. Hence, they didn't do it. They didn't make it into a culture war or whatever. And it will go to the next stage of trying to become a real law that people will be have to consider taking in and listening to, I guess. Because EU laws aren't really laws. They're more like,
suggestions.
You should be doing this, but we can't tell you, like, we can't do anything to force you. They're not going to arrest an entire country's government, you know? So, it's all about the cooperation. If you're cooperating with the EU, you have to agree with everything they say. Or you can just leave the EU, which is why Brexit happened, because the UK wanted to.
Yeah, well, they didn't have a plan beyond that, though, so they're screwed.
Yeah.
Bill Gates visits China as leaders try to revive foreign business interests. More Far East news. This is Beijing, according to the AP News. Microsoft Core co-founder Bill Gates said he is in Beijing, joining a series of foreign business figures who have visited China as ruling Communist Party tries to revive investor interest in the country. Gates, who stepped down as Microsoft chairman in 2014, said on Twitter late Wednesday that he would meet partners who have worked with his charitable foundation. However, Gates is revered in China as an entrepreneur, giving Chinese leaders a chance to show their interest in foreign business by publishing any meetings with him. So he's a big old celebrity in China. CEO of global companies include Elon Musk of Tesla Limited and Apple Inc.'s Tim Cook have visited China this year and met Premier Li Qiang, the top economic official, and cabinet ministers following the end of antivirus controls that block most international travel. I'm excited to visit with partners who have been working on global health and development challenges with Gates Foundation for more than 15 years. Gates wrote on Twitter. He gave no details. The ruling party is trying to revive foreign interests in China's slowing economy and reassure companies that have been rattled by the anti-monopoly and data security crackdowns, raids on consulting firms, tension with Washington, and pressure to align their plans with official development goals. So here we are with our corporate overlords out there drumming up business with China. That can only lead to economic development and more money for everybody, right?
Yeah, sure.
Your story.
All right. In culture news, Beyonce's concert in Stockholm blamed for unexpectedly high Swedish inflation. That's right.
Wow.
This one black woman created inflation all on her own. This is from just the Guardian staff and agencies, it says. Like, they all wrote it together, I guess.
They've got a theory, they do.
Swedish inflation fell below 10% in May, official statistics shows, but was still higher than expected, with some analysts suggesting superstar Beyonce had tipped the scales. Consumer price rose by 9.7% in May year on year, down from the 10.5% in April. The first time inflation has come under 10% in over 6 months. A decrease in electricity and food prices contributed to the lower inflation rate in May, said Statistics Sweden, while at the same time, costs of certain goods and service rose. For instance, hotel and restaurant visits, recreational services, and clothing, the agency said. According to Michael Grahn, chief economist for Sweden at Danske Bank, a visit by Beyoncé to Stockholm could explain why the rate was higher than expected. Beyoncé's start of her world tour in Sweden seems to have colored May inflation. How much is uncertain, Grahn said in a post to social media. Grahn said that her much-hyped concert in May probably accounted for 0.2 or 0.3 percentage points added to inflation by hotels and restaurant prices. Tens of thousands of fans flocked to Stockholm in the middle of May to catch two concerts that kicked off her first solo tour in 7 years. Estimates put the crowd at each concert at 46,000, with some forced to stay outside the capital as hotels filled up. It was a report that a number of fans had traveled from overseas to see the shows, taking advantage of the weak Swedish currency and lower ticket prices. Yeah, that's true. Sweden does not use the euro; they use their own whatever
Kroner or
currency.
something.
Yeah, krona or something. So yeah, they don't. If the euro is stronger than the Swedish currency, yeah, go for it. Wow, these tickets are only $30 instead of 60. You know, that's not true. It's Beyonce. The tickets are probably $200, but you get my point.
Not really, but
I'm saying that the currency-wise, right? You would not be paying $60. You'd be paying 30.
Oh yeah, I guess people would. Yeah, their money will buy more there, but I don't know if concert tickets ever are a great deal. But go ahead.
Okay.
It's a bad economic theory this guy's operating on. So
yeah,
trying to decipher what the hell he's even talking about is impossible. Go ahead. Sorry.
Ron told the Wall Street Journal that the effect was very rare, and he expected the situation to return normal in June. However, one economist told the Financial Times that Sweden could experience a similar inflation bump when Bruce Springsteen plays 3 nights of concerts in Gothenburg in June. You know, if all concerts affect inflation, let's just say, a well-known artist, inflation's gonna happen, guys. Inflation peaked in December at 12.3, a more than 30-year high, then slowed slightly in January to 11.7%. But unexpectedly spiked back to 12 in February. Like its peers, the United States and Europe, Sweden's central bank has repeatedly hiked its guiding rate in an effort to rein in inflation. The Riksbank raised the rate to 3.5 in late April and said it would probably raise by another quarter point in June or September. This is with help from Agence France Presse from The Guardian.
Okay. If inflation was really being caused by entertainment, and money was that hard to come by, which, I mean, how money was that, invaluable, then that's all we would do with our money. We would throw it towards useless things. That would be a measure for inflation, right? Well, that's an entirely different thing. It has nothing to do with producer prices or consumer prices. A concert is not a consumer price. It is a consumer price, but oh God, what are we going to do this month? We're going to starve. We don't go to a concert, right? It's not a normal monthly expenditure. Yeah, I suppose somebody coming into your country and taking its money, I guess, is not necessarily good, but it's the ticket price people, the people that sell the tickets that are gouging. It's not the concert people themselves, or the artists themselves. I'm having trouble talking anyway. Can anybody even hear me? All right. This day in history. What happened on this day? In 1389, the Battle of Kosovo, fought between the armies of Serbian Prince Lazar and the forces of the Ottoman Sultan Murad I, concluded with an Ottoman victory. So 1389. Long time ago, 1775, George Washington was named Commander-in-Chief of the Colonies of the Continental Congress. In 1844, Charles Goodyear received the patent for the process of rubber vulcanization and later got his name on a blimp. In 1846, the United States and Britain signed the Oregon Treaty, establishing the border between Canada and the United States at a latitude of 49 degrees north. In 1861, Austrian contralto Ernestine Schumann-Heink, one of the principal interpreters of the operas of Richard Wagner and Richard Strauss, was before the outbreak of World War I, was born.
Ooh.
Okay, so her
Tough
name
time to be born.
In 1861, she was born. In 1864, Arlington National Cemetery was established when 20 acres of Confederate General Robert E. Lee's estate in Virginia, which had been seized by the U.S. government, was authorized as a national cemetery.
Probably the only good use of Confederate anything, right? We're going to use your land to make a freaking funeral.
Famously, he married Martha Washington's daughter, so it was actually her land.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. And during World War II, Mary Custis, I think her name was. During World War II, U.S. Marines attacked Saipan in the Mariana Islands. They didn't just do it for fun. They were trying to take it from the Japanese. Sorry. In 1996.
You never know, you know? Russia these days
fun.
Doing stuff for fun, you know?
1996, American singer Ella Fitzgerald, known for her enormous vocal range in inventive interpretations and known for being able to shatter glass with her voice, died at the age of 79.
Rest in peace, man.
In 2007, after more than 30 years, American game show host Bob Barker stepped down to the host of Price is Right in a big event in American history, huh?
Wow.
And the even bigger event than Bob Barker leaving the Price is Right, in 1215, the Magna Carta. I know, the Magna Carta was sealed by King John. The Magna Carta, a charter of English liberties that occupies a unique place in the popular imaginations as a symbol and battle cry against oppression, was sealed on this day under the threat of civil war by King John in 1215.
Basically, the inspiration for the Constitution.
Oh yeah,
no one back
rights,
then
basically.
Ever wrote down, hey, these are the rights you have as a citizen until the Magna Carta.
Until a bunch of peasants said, hey, King John, take this and sign it or we're going to beat you to a pulp.
Okay, I'll sign it.
Edvard Grieg, Norwegian composer, was born on this day in 1843. It is the birthday of American rapper and actor Ice Cube, who was born in 1969. Actress Helen Hunt has turned my age. She was born this day in 1963. She is now 60. It is the president. We just mentioned China earlier. Well, it's the president of China's birthday. Happy birthday, 1953, Xi Jinping. And 1950, Lakshmi Mittal, Indian businessman, was born in 1950. If you know who he is, congratulations. And in 1940, Yuri Andropov, former president of the Soviet Union, was born. And what day is it, you ask? Maybe you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I am annoying. National Megalodon Day. What's a megalodon? I'm not sure. It appears to be a shark in this picture. It's National Photography Day. It's World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, so be nice to me.
I'm always nice to you.
I'm just, the whole general world be nice to me.
Everyone has to be nice to you, okay.
Must be nice to me. I'm obviously broken down.
Man.
Yeah.
I've seen some shit, man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mostly the bottom of a weed bowl.
National Smile Power Day. There you go.
Oh, yeah. You know,
yesterday
Hans said that your smile was very bright on the thumbnail for yesterday's episode.
Oh, well, I got a compliment.
What a beautiful smile, she said.
Ooh. Well, it's also Global Wind Day, so get out there and blow. National Foam Party Day, so get a bunch of foam and have a party. It looks like
LARPing.
Fun.
You know LARPing?
Looks like a LARPing? No.
When you pretend to sword fight but with foam weapons.
Oh, okay, got you. All right. National Career Nurse Assistance Day. We're still going. And it's also Magna Carta Day, which we already covered. So that's it.
Yay! Freedom and liberties or something.
And nurses, assistants, and foam and wind. And be nice to these old people they've been around since Magna Carta. Leave them alone. Treat them with respect.
If you think your life sucks right now, imagine how they feel. They've had way more of it.
Yeah, and it weighs more now, too.
Exactly. All right, this has been Allison here from Getting Better Thursday, and we will see you tomorrow for the end of the week and having a good weekend. So hope to see you then.
This is Roger covering all the news that you want to know. Believe it or not, this is all you want to know today on June 15th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.